One of the questions that I get asked very frequently when I'm live is, do you have any tips for new players? So here I am today bringing you 10 tips and tricks for new players in Terraria 1.4 and 1.4.1. Our first tip is going to be for players who are fairly early into the game who do not yet have access to wings. When you don't have access to wings and you aren't carrying around a lucky horseshoe, you take a lot of damage from falling. So, if you have access to a hook, you can shoot it at the ground beneath your feet to negate the fall. Our second tip is while you're flying, when you finally do have wings, if you grapple the ground ahead of you, it resets your flight timer and allows you to fly forever without actually needing to land. I'm not very good at it without gliding first, so I apologize, but it does work very well and I used to be very good at it. Our third tip is going to be when you are first starting off with a brand new character. It might be tempting to go cut down some regular trees, make yourself some armor. However, it would actually be more beneficial to track down your desert, for instance, and gather something like cactus to make armor out of. Defense bonuses granted by the cactus or from other woods will actually be more effective than the defense bonuses provided by regular wooden armor. And in 1.4.1, this goes a step further, and cactus armor actually grants you a thorns buff while worn. Our next tip is actually going to be for players who are looking for a little bit more damage when they're first starting off. You'll craft yourself something like a bow, and you'll get some wooden arrows, but they don't really do all that much damage. If you, however, go over to the ice biome and gather yourself up some ice, you can use the ice to craft ice torches that will then allow you to make frostburn arrows, which do almost double the damage of the wooden arrows, minus the bonus from the bow, and will inflict the frostburn debuff on enemies, which will do 8 damage per second. Our next tip is going to be for players who are struggling a little bit in their stats. Early on, you don't have a whole lot of defense or damage. If you go and, when you're underground, you gather up some cobweb, you can craft yourself a loom, and at the loom you have the ability to craft a white string, which is an accessory that just increases yo-yo range. However, if you craft it, you have the chance of getting modifiers on it, like +1 defense, and you can just keep crafting them with 30 cobweb until you get one that has a modifier that actually benefits what you're trying to go for. Ideally, you would want to go until you get warding, because early on defense is what you're going for. So right there, easy 4 defense, and it only costs some cobweb. Tip number 6 is actually going to be about flying enemies, such as the Eaters of Souls. One thing to note with them is they're actually not able to travel down into water of their own free will. It's not a guaranteed you're never going to be killed because you'll drown eventually, but it allows you to get a quick reprieve from them and then pick them off from below with some arrows or a long-reaching weapon like a spear. And before we continue any further, I just wanted to let you all know that I post one Terraria tip every single day over on Twitter at ChaosDragonTV. There will be a link in the description. Go follow me if you're interested. One mistake I've seen many players make is not realizing that informational accessories such as the radar or the metal detector do not need to be equipped to function. They'll have it equipped on themselves and they'll be like, oh cool, that's useful, but if you keep it in your inventory, it still provides all those same benefits. The only reason to ever equip them is if you don't have another accessory and you just want the extra modifier buff it gives. Our next tip is going to be for players who have been lucky enough to encounter and kill Pinky, and they've gotten their hands on some pink gel. Now, while it might be tempting to craft up some bouncy grenades for just a fun little weapon to throw around, it would actually be more beneficial to instead craft up some glass, use that glass to make some mugs, bring those mugs over to a keg that you have placed, and use that to make ale. With this ale, the pink gel, some torches, and some cloth, which you need to craft at a loom with some cobwebs that we've used in a previous tip, you'll be able to make yourself some Molotov cocktails. These Molotov cocktails are a very effective ranged weapon, doing 23 damage. It'll explode and leave little flames that will linger for an extended period of time, doing additional damage to enemies and lighting them on fire. Tip number 9 is going to be in regards to the Goblin Invasion and the Eye of Cthulhu, both of which have the ability to spawn naturally and attack you when you aren't prepared for it. However, they cannot spawn unless certain criteria have been met. For instance, both of them require that you have at least 200 health. So if you don't want the Eye of Cthulhu spawning on you in the middle of the night, or you don't want the Goblin Army to attack you, all you have to do is make sure your maximum health is under 200. And the final tip for this video is actually going to be more of a warning to be very careful when following the advice and tips given for older versions. Some of the tips might actually not only not work, but they might actually be dangerous to even try. For instance, one tip that a lot of players used to give is to fight the queen bee on the surface rather than inside of her hive. So spawn her in and then teleport home. However, if the queen bee is fought on the surface, she will become enraged and will actually do more damage than she would otherwise and will move a lot quicker.